Non-technical founders, welcome to today's Q&A. I'm just gonna head straight away and start this by reading the questions. The first question, let's see it. Why help non-technical founders instead of having a startup of your own? Wow. I think there are two main things that led me to helping non-technical founders instead of creating a startup of my own. And the first one is I like people, and I like lots and lots of people. When I had startups, there's a lot of product work that we can do, even if you're a salesman, even if you're on the business side, there's a lot of focus on reaching people through the internet and less through real conversations. The another side of this is that I love intimate relationships more than weak connections. Like if I have a crowdfunding platform, which I had, right? I couldn't spend as much time with the people that used it as when I'm serving founders. I think that's the first side of the story. The second side is I don't have a startup idea. Maybe if I had one that I was crazy about it, I would start it. I don't know, but I think the first one is really important. I had to spend many and many years doing product work and doing marketing, digital marketing work to understand I need to be close and intimate to people. Let's see the next one. Why should a non-technical founder be watching iteration time? Okay, the question is probably by someone who read my non-technical founders formula article and chapter of my book. The idea of watching iteration time is making sure the time between you have something you know you need to build and this specific thing is live is shorter and shorter and shorter. That's what I think the question meant. The reason is twofold. First, inherently, you need to be able to adapt fast because that's the reality of startups. But especially for non-technical founders, it is important to watch it because if you don't, you're gonna be crippled. The default for non-technical founders is to be able to iterate slowly because you're not building yourself, your product. You need to have a team available, someone available to make changes, or better yet, you need to be able to make changes to your product yourself. Not by coding, I mean by, for example, having an admin panel or a content management system where you can change your copy to validate your hypothesis. This kind of thing is really important for non-technical founders. Okay, to the next question then. I'm building the first version of my product and my CTO gave me 2 months to build a basic admin panel. Is that right? Yes. Depending on your product, that might be right. So the first thing you need to understand is you need to know about your specific situation. The CTO must need to understand your specific situation in order to understand that. But I like to start early stage startups with a ready to use admin panel with a tool like Adminion, right? If you go, I think it's adminium.com. If you go to their website, you're gonna see that you just plug it into a database and you can start managing your whole content. And that's a 5-minute process instead of maybe 2 weeks to build a simple admin panel. But yeah, depending on your startup, it might be a good idea to build the 2 weeks, to invest the 2 weeks in building the custom admin panel. Only it will be the reality of 5% of the startups. The other 95 can go with Adminium. Can you tell us more about what kind of features we should avoid building from scratch? The ones that are ready, the ones that already exist, all of them. Um, Anything you can use that's already ready to use, you should at the start. Even if it's not a perfect fit into the way you envision doing it, right? For example, I want Adminion, the service we were talking about before. Adminion might not be perfect for you. It's kind of harder to use than a custom admin panel, or I don't know, some functionalities are not present. But even then, it's better to use it unless you have a really good reason for not using it. Can you tell us more about your first experience as a CTO? Did it change the way you look into non-technical founders? Yes, it did, but it took me 9 years to understand it, right? Starting with the last part of the question. I'm gonna dive deeper in a second. My first experience as a CTO was when I started my crowdfunding platform, which is called Catarsis in Portuguese. Uh, I couldn't find technical founders, and I decided I would learn to code for the web and create my product. In my mind, I thought it would be like the first 2 3 months I would be coding, and then I would find a CTO and not be coding anymore. Wasn't the case. I had to do it for a long time, and that was actually what allowed me to become a real CTO. So when the site started gaining scale, I had to learn how to scale servers. When we're on Prime TV, I had to learn how to deal with traffic spikes, right? And when we had to add a whole bunch of features for a new audience, I had to learn how to make my architecture flexible enough. And that was what made me into a real CTO. I started with the title of CTO, but I wasn't one. I just learned how to build something, right? Yeah, and that's my first experience. What changed my way into looking thinking about non-technical founders, I would say, is that once I could reflect on my past experience as a non-technical founder after being a CTO for many years, I understood I I didn't need to make the leap into a CTO. I chose to do it, but if I knew I could talk to technical people even without turning myself into one, and I could convince them of my truth about product and about business, and if I could share my vision in a way that was compelling enough to the technical people I was working with, if I achieved that, it would have been enough, and I would have not needed to make the transition into a CTO. That's something I learned, and I use this lesson to help other founders today. What's the best skill a non-technical founder should develop? Yeah, the best skill you should develop is knowing. I'm gonna say two skills, okay? You should know when a software is working or when it's not working, regardless of your technical knowledge. Your experience as an app user enables you to do this, right? You just know if something's working or not, and you should trust this knowledge. The second skill is to it's related is to not take bullshit from developers. Developers will try to say that something won't work. Developers will try to say that something is better in a way that your intuition, your gut says that's not true. When your gut says that something that a developer is saying is not true, go with your guts. But of course, there's maybe a third skill, which is recognizing when the developers are right. Right? That's hard to balance. What do you consider the basic guidelines for testing the features my tech team is shipping? The first guideline, first thing you should try to do is to test everything yourself on many devices, live, not on a staging environment, the real thing. If you get good at testing the real thing really well, that's the best thing you can do, right? And then there are probably smaller things you should learn about what are the devices that are most common for people to use. This kind of thing that is very detailed, but it's not as important as being able to do the testing yourself. I just heard about the difference between staging and production environments. Is that a thing? Why and when is that important? Okay, that's a good question. A staging environment is a set of servers that are there only for you to test your versions. A production environment is the real deal, the product that's live. Okay? I recommend that everybody that has a live product use a staging environment and a production environment, so you can break some things while you're developing on the staging environment, and then when you think the staging environment is stable enough, you move it to production. But one thing I want you to be really attentive for is this process between staging and production should be done on a daily basis. When you break things on staging, doesn't mean you have to break them today, fix them tomorrow, and ship them to production the other day. It's all within a day. You test it in staging, you approve it, and then you ship it. Test it in staging, approve it, ship it. That is called continuous deployment, for a technical term, and it's one of the best ways to make sure your production version is current, it's working, and you're getting real feedback from real users. Yeah, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for sending your questions. Please keep them coming. I really want to see real, really interesting questions that I know you have them. And if you're worried that I might have answered a question previously, ask them again. Since I'm improvising here, I'm just reading the questions at the same time I'm shooting this video. So since I'm improvising, I'll probably have a different answer if I answer the same question tomorrow. So please keep them coming.